With the release of Help Wanted 2, we've been given brand new insight into the story of the recent games, but not without leaving plenty of questions that need to be answered. There is, of course, the matter of who we're playing as and what's going on with the game's two endings, but also the presence of Glitchtrap, Candy Cadet, and the game's relevance to previous entries in the series. While people have put forward some guesses as to what the explanations to these things may be, I don't think the correct answers have quite reached mainstream conversation. So stay tuned and consider subscribing, because I'm going to explain just what this game is and why it's so important to the overarching story. For those who may not know, or who do but could use a refresher, Help Wanted 2 starts us off in the pizzeria simulator location beneath the Pizzaplex, with everything looking to be intact. However, as you play, files and screens get hijacked by Glitchtrap, and prizes appear in the hub world, including a Faz Wrench, which can be used to go into a side room with a new Princess Quest arcade machine and an AR inhibitor like the ones in Ruin. While you can't access Princess Quest, by turning off the inhibitor, you can remove the Vanny mask that it turns out you've been wearing the whole time. With this, the pizzeria is revealed to be in the dilapidated state we see in Security Breach, and you're able to play the minigames that were broken by Glitchtrap by swapping back and forth between the real and AR worlds. From here, there are two endings you can get. The first you can get just by completing minigames that end up with you being gifted action figures of Freddy, Vanny, Chica, Foxy, Golden Freddy, and the puppet, which then fuse together. When you try to grab the fused action figure, a charging pod appears and the door slides open. What looks to be Glitchtrap's hand grabs the door from the inside and the lights go out. Then the lights turn back on and the player is jumped by a bunch of Nightmare-owned staff bots before taking on Maskbot's point of view at the beginning of Ruin and handing Cassie the Vanni mask. The other ending can only be obtained by solving puzzles in certain minigames and getting handed plushies referred to officially as memories by Glitchtrap. Each plushie has a mask on it corresponding with the 6 main haunted animatronics, and once you collect them all, you can get a purple coin to put in the Princess Quest machine, allowing you to play the game. It starts with the princess being told, "You are one, and you remain. What is left that is hidden, now go to next room." Ignoring the strange grammar of those sentences, you direct the princess to pick up the sword and you play through the game, eventually collecting a key that unlocks a door, landing the princess in the same room as the player. Upon having the princess slash you with her sword, you pick up the sword yourself and continue to play in first person through Princess Quest, and come to a graveyard that matches up with the one in the original, now with each gravestone having a memory plushie next to it. You have to light all of the graves to proceed, but if you do them in the order that you had to in the original Princess Quest, a secret passage containing a Bonnie mask said to look familiar will open up. Additionally, once all the torches are lit, doors open leading to the old man from the original Princess Quest series, who you give the Vanny mask to in exchange for the Glitchtrap plushie from the original Help Wanted, and he calls it a fair trade. Then the wall opens to the sister location elevator, which takes you down to the inside of a claw machine with a massive Vanny staring in from the outside. Moon takes the Glitchtrap plushie from you and drops it down the prize chute. Vanny takes it out, with it manifesting as the full Glitchtrap in her hand. Glitchtrap cowers in fear as Vanny crushes it, then waves goodbye as she backs away into the fog. So with that all said, what does any of that mean? Well, to answer that question, let's start with Candy Cadet. Just like in Ruin, where Candy Cadet tells a metaphorical story about the Mimic luring Cassie to its location with a voice she would trust, we're given a story that seems to explain the narrative of Help Wanted 2. In this case, the story is about a young woman who, when she was a kid, got lured into a forest by a witch who wanted to eat her and managed to escape the oven. However, she was left with a permanent scar, so when she grew up, she went back to the forest, confident that her age and experience would allow her to get revenge. A young boy met her at the entrance and offered to guide her, so she followed him towards a house. He told her to rest before killing the witch, and because she was tired, she decided to kill the witch in the morning. She went into the house with the boy, and the story ends by saying that the oven door closed, the witch would finally have her meal. From this, we get a few major pieces of information about what's going on in this game. First of all, it seems pretty clear that the witch in this story is supposed to be Glitchtrap, since Glitchtrap is the overarching force we end up dealing with in the endings. And I think it's likely that the oven and being eaten would be representative of falling under Glitchtrap's control or something along those lines. We can also infer that this isn't the first time our character has dealt with Glitchtrap. Rather, there was some point earlier on where we were confronted with it, were led astray, and managed to escape, even if it was with some sort of lasting damage to show for it. Help Wanted 2 would most likely be the latter portion of the story, with our character returning sometime later for revenge. Our player character would then be someone who has not only experienced dealing with Glitchtrap before, but managed to escape him. Because of this, I've seen a few different interpretations of who we're playing as, one of which being that we play as Vanessa after being freed from Glitchtrap thanks to Princess Quest. After all, she was under Glitchtrap's influence, and if the Princess Quest ending is canon to Security Breach, it would imply that she managed to escape Glitchtrap. Under this theory, Help Wanted 2 would be her returning. The thing is, this is where the idea idea starts to fall apart. In the Princess Quest ending of Help Wanted 2, we give Glitchtrap to Vanny to destroy. And while I wouldn't say that Vanny appearing rules out a Vanessa protagonist by being Vanessa herself, as I do believe Security Breach and Help Wanted Vanessa are different characters, Vanny making an appearance definitely seems to imply that she wasn't actually freed in the first place. I have an entire video going over why I think the Princess Quest ending of Security Breach may not be the canon one if you're interested, but either way, Vanny and Glitchtrap are both around for this game. So to say Vanessa escaped Glitchtrap and willingly went back for revenge doesn't really work in the context of Glitchtrap not being destroyed to allow that to happen in the first place. So with Vanessa ruled out, what about Cassie? She used a Vanny mask just like the one in Help Wanted 2 throughout Ruin, which seems to be tied to Glitchtrap thanks to it making an appearance in Help Wanted and Princess Quest. And in Ruin, she escaped the Mimic, which many suggest that Glitchtrap is. Help Wanted 2 would then be her coming back for revenge after the events of Ruin. There are a few reasons I think this isn't the case. For one thing, one of the minigames we play involves us giving Roxy the mask she eventually wears in Ruin, which not only explains the design change, but when combined with the ending of us giving Cassie the Vanni mask, seems to imply that the events of Help Wanted 2 were sometime between main game Security Breach and the events of Ruin. While one could argue that everything in this game is just Cassie experiencing someone else's memories, that would still raise the question of whose memories they would be and why Cassie would be dealing with them. This is especially true given the relevance of Glitchtrap. Candy Cadet's story implies that Glitchtrap hurt the protagonist sometime in the past, and now they're coming back to get revenge on him. In Ruin, Cassie has a Vanny mask and saw Vanny, but Glitchtrap himself was not the entity she was dealing with. Her antagonist was the Mimic, and despite the theories of many members of the community, I think that there is a very important distinction to make here, and that involves Glitchtrap's ties to William Afton. Most of my thoughts on the subject can be found in some of my previous videos, and the majority of what I talk about in those videos still holds up, even though many of them were made before Ruin revealed Mimic's design and just how different it is from burn traps. Because of that, I don't plan on rehashing all my thoughts on the Mimic trap theory in this video, though I may make a video on the topic in the future if either enough people seem interested or I can't resist the impulse to make another one anymore. But, as it stands, I think the evidence in Help Wanted 2 is actually pretty solid for Glitchtrap being primarily William Afton on its own. That isn't to say I don't think Mimic is involved with Glitchtrap at all. In fact, in Princess Quest 3, you need both a green rabbit plush, which in Help Wanted 2 we see represents Glitchtrap specifically, and the Vanny mask as a separate item to get the key needed to complete Princess Quest and defeat Glitchtrap implies to me that Glitchtrap itself is William, just hijacking the Mimic program. That would explain why Glitchtrap has ties to William, as well as why there are elements of the Mimic still there. It's not just one or the other, it's a virus that formed when some of William's code from the circuit boards in Help Wanted latched on and hijacked the Mimic 1 program in order to find a way out of the nightmare coma he was trapped in for Ultimate Custom Night. This would also explain the imagery used in both of Help Wanted 2's endings. In the Mask Bot ending, we see Glitchtrap coming out of a charging pod, and while it doesn't swing open like burn traps in Security Breach, this imagery definitely seems to point to Glitchtrap and burn trap being at their core the same entity. And since in my opinion chances of the Mimic being burn trap, or at least being in control of burn trap, are incredibly low, that entity would be William Afton. However, one argument made in favor of Mimic Trap is that in the files, the assets for this ending are labeled Help Trap, with the idea being that this would refer to the Helpy program in the Vanny mask being Glitchtrap. However, due to Princess Quest 4 and certain cut lines in the files for Help Wanted 2, I don't think this is the case. It turns out that originally, there was going to be a voice that would guide the player towards the steps needed to unlock the Princess Quest ending. While voiced versions of these lines didn't make it into the final game, they do still give insight into the thought process that went into the game's story, and seem to line up with it pretty well. With this in mind, there are a few interesting things in here, such as the heavy implication that the masked plushies are Glitchtrap's memories, which, when considering the fact that the memories are of the 5 missing kids and Charlie, seems to add further credibility to the William argument, since even if the Mimic saw the missing children incident somehow, it wouldn't have seen Charlie's death. But the line that I particularly want to draw attention to here is the one that says, "Don't help it escape." While we don't know the full context of these lines, I think that the reference of helping it escape is what the term Help Trap refers to. Glitchtrap is using us to do what it wants, and we see it escape from the charging pod in the Help Trap ending, which leads to us getting jumped by staff bots. The way I see it, the Help Trap ending is called as such because by collecting the action figures and allowing them to combine, we help Glitchtrap before getting attacked and potentially killed and ending up possessing Maskbot to give the Vanny mask to Cassie in Ruin. While you could still choose to interpret this as Helpy Trap, Help Wanted 2's other ending seems to reinforce that this isn't the case. In the Princess Quest ending, you have to trade in the Vanny mask to receive the plush that transforms into Glitchtrap. This implies that even if the two are connected, the plushie representing Glitchtrap and the Vanny mask are not exactly the same thing. If we go back to the cut lines I mentioned, one of them says, "It's using you to finish where she left off, only a small piece of his code remains," before the next set of lines starts talking about how it is bound to the past and you need to find its memories. One thing I'd like to note here is the distinction between it and his. It is used for the one using the player, and the one who is bound to the past through memories. With Glitchtrap appearing all over the place and being the one holding the memory plushies, I think that it is Glitchtrap. Meanwhile, the term his is used to refer to a piece of code belonging to someone. With Glitchtrap's visual appearance and the context of the virus being present in Help Wanted due to old circuit boards being scanned for pathfinding, I think that his code refers to the portion of William's code that attached itself to the rest, creating Glitchtrap as we know it. It is Glitchtrap, and it only has a small portion of William's code, keeping it that way. It could be that by collecting William's memories embedded in Glitchtrap, we're, in a metaphorical sense, exposing the code connecting William to Glitchtrap. Meanwhile, the Vanny mask is what has ties to Helpy and the Mimic. When you trade the mask for the plush, the old man, who in the files is labeled OMC, likely standing for Old Man Consequences, calls it a fair trade. What if that's because once you receive the Glitchtrap plush representing the code connecting Glitchtrap to William, and give it to Vanny to finally destroy, you're cutting off William's connection and really just trading one hostile entity, the Glitchtrap virus controlled by William, for another in the Mimic. This could also be why Glitchtrap itself doesn't really make any appearances in Ruin outside of Graffiti. It was present and still in Vanny for some time after the events of main game's security breach, but it was what happened in Help Wanted 2 that finally purged it from the system, leaving only the Mimic behind. In any case, no matter what stance you have on the Mimic's connections to Glitchtrap, the way evidence points to Help Wanted 2 taking place before Ruin kinda rules Cassie out from the likely player candidates. Gregory is a similar case, even though we know he was controlled by Glitchtrap. While he did presumably break free from Glitchtrap's influence as of security breach, and the gender difference between Gregory being a boy and the character in the Candy Cadet story wouldn't really matter since the one about Cassie and Ruin had the gender swapped as well, the Carney animatronic in Help Wanted 2 says that the player looks like they could have kids. Gregory, meanwhile, does not look like he could have kids, and if this is between security breach and Ruin, robot kid or not, he would not be old enough to look like a father. However, while Gregory can't really be a father, there is one character we know of who is a dad, and it just so happens that we know that said character had and knows how to use a Faz wrench due to his status as a Fazbear Entertainment technician, would find a Bonnie mask familiar as Bonnie is his favorite character, and just so happens to have a major spotlight shown on him just months before Help Wanted 2 came out, thanks to the Ruin DLC, highlighting that Cassie's dad fits these criteria exactly. But I don't think it's just as simple as us playing as some guy who happens to be a Fazbear technician and related to the protagonist of Ruin. No, with the clues left by Candy Cadet and other hints dropped by both Help Wanted games, not only do I think that he's most likely who we play as, but I think there's one major part of his identity that the community at large has overlooked. With the player apparently having familiarity with the Bonnie mask hidden in Princess Quest, many people are focused on the theory that Cassie's dad is the Bonnie bully that we see in FNAF 4. And while I definitely think that's a possibility, if we excuse for the fact that the guy would then be in his 50s when Cassie was born, and I think it would be pretty cool personally, that's not what I think is the most important here. After all, Candy Cadet's story spoke of someone who, at some time in the past, was led astray and almost, but not quite, eaten by the witch, or hijacked by Glitchtrap, before returning years later for revenge. If Cassie's dad is indeed the character of this story, Help Wanted 2 isn't the first time he's encountering Glitchtrap. This is him coming back for revenge, which means that at some point before this, Cassie's dad came into contact with Glitchtrap and was almost hijacked before managing to escape with a permanent scar. And the thing is, thanks to the story of the original Help Wanted, and especially thanks to another YouTuber called the Oof Troop for pointing out the idea to me while we were talking about Help Wanted 2 a couple days after release, I think we know just how this encounter played out. In Help Wanted, you learn about Glitchtrap through these tapes recorded by a former beta tester for the game that we call Tape Girl. However, Glitchtrap's story isn't the only one we hear about. Quite a bit of time is spent describing, from an outsider's perspective, the experience of the beta tester before Tape Girl, a man named Jeremy. Jeremy was the one to first note the appearance of Glitchtrap after the supposed pathfinding circuit boards were scanned. And as he continued testing the game, he started having nightmares, would space out at work, and looked to be in worse health. He started getting written up for minor offenses as the company started looking for reasons to fire him, but eventually that stopped being a concern. Tape Girl mentions that the day of the incident, she came in early and thought she was alone in the building. She noticed that the light in the supply room was on, and it's implied that she walked into the room. She says she saw what looked like a Halloween mask on the floor, along with what she assumed to be spilled ink. Then she heard noise from the testing room and went there to check on Jeremy, who looked to have spilled ink all over himself and had his head covered by the VR headset. Tape Girl mentions that Jeremy would have known where the guillotine paper slicer was in the supply room since he used to do design work, the likely implication being that Jeremy used it on himself to remove whatever the Halloween mask-looking item was, and that the ink was probably actually blood. While there's a bit more that Tape Girl talks about, such as how she was brought on as a beta tester, I think there's a reason there's so much focus on Jeremy in these recordings. Jeremy was the first person to encounter Glitchtrap directly, and the only one we know of outside of Tape Girl and the other characters I've already gone over to have done so. He also ended his career as a beta tester by slicing off what Tape Girl described as a Halloween mask, along with presumably part of his face, which, if he survived, would certainly leave a lifelong scar. And what's especially interesting is that not only does one of the Game Over screens in Help Wanted display the phrase "Remember Jeremy," but so does one of the achievements in Help Wanted 2. The first time you collect a memory, you get an achievement called Remember Jeremy, where the image used to represent it is of the memory plush with the Bonnie mask. While I do think that the Bonnie mask in Princess Quest could be an indicator of the Bonnie bully from FNAF 4, with the establishment of Jeremy as a character in Help Wanted, the return of the phrase "Remember Jeremy," and the Candy Cadet story being about someone who was scarred in a previous encounter with Glitchtrap, I don't just think we play as Cassie's dad, but also Jeremy from the original Help Wanted. Here's how I think things played out. Jeremy, after beta testing, was barely able to escape Glitchtrap's clutches, and he used the guillotine paper slicer to do so. With how Tape Girl says she went over to the room Jeremy was in when she heard noise, we know that the mask she saw wasn't in the room with Jeremy, meaning she would have been able to see it clearly enough to realize if it was just a removed human face. With this in mind, the mask's design was likely in the vein of either the Vanny mask, a Bonnie one, or something else along those lines that would fit the description of a Halloween mask. We know the Vanny mask puts an occipital transponder in the wearer's head to allow permanent functionality with the mask, and even if his mask wasn't of the Vanny variety specifically, it likely functioned in a similar vein. With the way the mask just covers the face, that only leaves that covered area for the transponder to be planted in. As such, Jeremy used the slicer on his face to remove it. He may not have even sliced off his entire face in order to do so, but rather just the portion including the chip, increasing his chances of survival. In any case, Jeremy survived, though with a permanent scar as a result. Then, years later, after the Pizzaplex was built, Jeremy signed up for a job as a technician at Fazbear Entertainment. The VR game he'd been working on had been for them, so maybe, by working for them, he'd find a way to destroy the entity that had hurt him so much. Some have suggested that he's the one speaking in the notes in Security Breach about trying and failing to beat all the Princess Quest games and save the princess. I think this is technically possible, and it would be a good way to explain him trying to destroy Glitchtrap, but the one labeled Arcade Conspiracy says that it was part of an exit interview, implying that whoever was speaking in that note got fired. It's possible that he got fired and then went back later for the events of Help Wanted 2, though Cassie's dialogue in Ruin seems to imply that her dad is the current rather than former owner of a Faz wrench, so I'm hesitant to say that's the case. It's also possible that one of the notes was from Cassie's dad, but the other wasn't, which would then solve that issue, but either way, Jeremy was doing something, and that caught Glitchtrap's attention. I always found it interesting when Ruin revealed that Gregory had reached out to Cassie when she was alone on her birthday to make friends with her. At that point in time, Gregory presumably would have been under Glitchtrap's control himself, so what reason would he have had to befriend Cassie? Kids at school or something would make sense since he had to blend in, but while it's technically possible there was no ulterior motive, due to his other actions as Patient 46, I think he did have one in befriending Cassie. After all, Gregory was Patient 46 in the first place because he was going to the same therapist as Vanessa to keep an eye on her and her communications with the therapists. So what if the reason he befriended Cassie was to keep an eye on her father? Glitchtrap knew that Jeremy was now working in the Pizzaplex and couldn't have him operating unmonitored, so he had Gregory put himself in a position where he would be able to do just that. At some point, the events of Security Breach played out, Burntrap probably got yoinked by the Blob, and the Pizzaplex fell into ruin as the Blob tunneled its way out. Jeremy left a note for his daughter telling her he'd be gone for a while and returned to the Pizzaplex. While I don't know exactly how this would have played out with the information that we currently have, somehow, he got lured into putting on a Vanny mask and was brought to the Pizzeria Simulator location for the events of Help Wanted 2. Then, in his efforts to destroy the entity that had been haunting him for years, not only did Jeremy accidentally help it, but even if afterward he may have somehow found a way to allow another to destroy William Afton's code and free herself, he still caused his own downfall and ended up dooming his own daughter to the events of ruin in the process. I personally think that if something along these lines is the intended narrative, it brings the story full circle in a tragically satisfying way. The story of the original Help Wanted is brought to a close in Help Wanted 2, with other games giving more information and ways for the story to continue. But hey, if you believe something else, that's absolutely valid. With how vague implications and interpretations can be, I think allowing for a variety of ideas to be explored makes for the highest chances of eventually finding the right answer. But with all that said, if you enjoyed the video at all, please consider subscribing or sharing the video if you thought any of what I said had merit. I appreciate you all taking the time to watch. With all that said, don't get stabbed and have a nice day.